Greetings, folks. Today's replay is a match that we had a few days ago. Myself in the Scharnhorst, and I am divisioned up with Jimijaz in the Sims and Schepker in the Leningrad. We agree early on during voice comms that we will go support the East flank. This is standard battle on Trident. I'm not a big fan of the standard battle mode. I find that it tends to become a camp fest, basically which team blinks first sort of aspect. There's also the dimension that one team that pushes hard on a particular flank can get focused out and then fall behind, and then they can't recover. And there seems to be sometimes this psychology that, oh, it's standard battle, we have to go and attack the other base and go capture it, and that's basically not the case at all. In standard battle, my experience and my opinion is that basically the team that falls behind first is can almost be guaranteed to lose, so long as the team that gets the advantage is able to hold on to it through very static play and very passive play. So we're going to go out here on the east flank and see what's out here. I have huge detectability, so I'm detected very early. I have a secondary build on my Scharnhorst. I know a lot of people that prefer to have more of a stealth build. They don't want to be detected quite as early. I find that in tier 7 it's not so much of an issue. Higher tiers, battleships getting better concealment, in my opinion, tends to be more crucial. So here I don't care so much that I'm detected. In fact, I would prefer that our opponents shoot at me instead of my more lightly armored allies. It's part of the job of the battleship, is to take the shots for the team. Fortunately, in our early going here, there's so much smoke that gets put up that we basically can see very little. This Lyon is, I think, chugging along fairly slowly, doing the kiting thing. But yeah, early on we end up just having this giant, smoke screen fest, and you can see there's at least 4 smoke screens that have been put up, and we can't see too much on this flank right now. That will change here soon enough. Ships will start coming out of their smoke, or smoke will expire. Working on some destroyers that we see that are at range. But again, it's not very dynamic gameplay, standard battle. Here's the Gnevny that's pushing up the far east end of the flank. I see a low health Königsberg, so I'm going to take my shot to get him out of the match and try to get us in the lead. So again, standard battle is not my favorite. I said that a few times now. I apologize if I sound like a broken record. It tends to keep people apart. I get first blood there by taking out the Königsberg. But yeah, standard battle, it's not very dynamic. And again, it kind of comes down to whichever team kind of flinches first. Looks like the Gnevny has lost his engine, but the Fiji takes out the Hatsuharu that's on this flank. I'm trying to push up to try to keep the König and the Fiji and the Geda from pushing through. We take it ashores. I believe that was on the west flank. Now, if you look at our west flank, we are quite imbalanced here on the 2 flanks in terms of our strength. Most of our strength is on the east side. They have pretty evenly spread their strength on both sides, and our eastern flank here over the next few minutes is going to be whittled down. We've got the König coming around, but I think he knows that he's about to face the Scharnhorst and start sailing away. Semi-secondaries on him, but yeah, if I had to go into a position of brawling with him, he would have had no chance, because between my faster reload, my stronger secondaries, and of course the torpedoes, I would have been a huge threat for him. I see a nearly broadside Fiji, so I changed targets here because Scharnhorst guns are very good at taking out cruisers. But he starts pulling away. Now I changed my secondaries, I believe, to the Gnevny because I want to get him down. But I'm going to realize here in a few minutes that I'm going to start getting over-focused here, and even though I am the battleship and I am supposed to take the shots for the team, I don't want to suicide, and so I've already lost about a third of my health. I do have a heal that's ready to go, but I want to wait till I get out of range of these guys before I start healing up too much. In fact, I already set my first heal. But the idea is basically to push the opponents back. The ship count is even right now. We have technically a point lead only because we've taken out 2 cruisers and a destroyer compared to we've lost 2 destroyers and 1 cruiser. But we're basically pushed the east flank back, which is good. But again, as I mentioned here, we see a destroyer that's kind of moving up the center. Jim in the Sims is going to intercept him and take him out. In fact, actually his torpedoes take him out, which was pretty cool. Sims torps are very slow, but that was a good thing. And we're going to realize here over the next few minutes the few other ships that we have on in fact, there's only 2 at this point that are on the east flank are going to go, I'm sorry, on the west flank are going to go down, and we're going to have to change flanks and move back to the cap to defend it. So now we can't see anything. I put my plane up in the hopes that we might be able to spot something here. But between the smoke and the range that these guys are at and the spotting distance of my plane, we are unable to see anybody. Or I guess the Koenig shows up again, but we're not able to see much on the east flank. So I'm kind of nosing my way back. At this point in the game, I was less cognizant at that time that the west flank was collapsing. I was still focused on trying to get some of these ships down. We've just lost our shores. That leaves only the New York on the west flank, and they've got at least 4 ships on the west flank that will be able to focus them out. I think it's right about now that we realize that our flank has collapsed, and we're going to have to start making our way back. In fact, we're much too far on the east side, mostly riding on the 9 and 10 line, and I take a pretty good shot there from that Koenig. I'm a little too broadside at this point, trying to get this Cleveland down out of the game. But I'm going to have to sail back. I'm starting to move back toward our cap here. Yeah, so Jim is coming back as well. Schepker will turn around as well. He's in the Leningrad, which of course is obnoxiously fast. Actually, that was great. The Shep was able to get the Gnevny down, but now we've lost all ships on the west flank. The New York finally succumbs to the focus fire of the ships that were on the west flank, and so we're headed back. So we are facing a Cleveland to Lyon, and I believe there's one other ship that shows up here. Oh yes, it's the Akatsuki that shows up here. So they're actually quite strong. They're making a very coordinated push toward our cap. Jim tries to intercept the Akatsuki, but he needs to bail because he's going to get focused out by 2 battleships, each of which has 16 guns, as well as a Cleveland. That's not a recipe for success if a destroyer is discovered, so he needs to put smoke up and get out into concealment and avoid being taken out. As I'm moving back towards the cap, obviously I can't see anything on the west flank right now, so I'm taking kind of pot shots at whatever I can as we go along here. Now, I make a pretty serious error here by turning this broadside to the group the opposing group that's on the west side. I'm more or less flat broadside, and I take a huge salvo from the Lyon. Now, the turtleback on the German battleships is legendary, but the German battleships are still prone to a lot of penetrating damage. So even if the shells do not penetrate to the citadel, they will result in a lot of penetrations and a lot of damage. Now I can recover more damage as normal penetrations than if it had been a Citadel hit, but still that Lyon and that one salvo took out at least half, if not more than half, of my remaining health. So that was a very serious error, and it was clear that this Lyon player, who's very good, was kind of waiting for me to be in a position where he could maximize his fire on me, and he certainly did do that. So I have to kind of do the kiting thing here to try to angle away and avoid taking more hits. We briefly saw the Akatsuki that has now entered our cap, but we no longer can see it, so I'm trying to help Jim by getting the Cleveland down. German dispersion at its finest, only, 2 shells out of 9 hit. But the Cleveland is almost down here. One more shot, I think, but Jim gets the kill. So I realize I'm quite vulnerable. I'm full broadside to the Lyon, but he doesn't have all of his guns on me. Now, we technically at this point have the lead, but they are in our cap, and a bunch of our ships are on the southeast corner of the map and are actually compromising our ability to defend the cap. It's basically our division of myself and the Scharnhorst, the Sims, and the Leningrad, which are going to defend the cap. No, the Akatsuki has left the cap. I'm trying to avoid being in a situation where I'm in a crossfire between the Lyon here, which is much healthier than I am. I have no problems going and brawling him, but he knows well enough to keep his distance from me and not get within torpedo range. So, but I'm now quite vulnerable because the ships down in the south by the cap could potentially put me in a crossfire. Fortunately, right now, only one ship is targeting me, and I think that's this Lyon. So I'm trying to keep myself reasonably well angled, but with 16 shells coming in, I'm invariably going to take some overpens and penetrations. There's the Confederate. That's kind of a reflection of the how much I've had to spread the damage around. I'm rotating here again. I feel like after I watched the replay that I'm making an error in terms of how much side I'm showing. I also do know that the Akatsuki was out here and likely sending torpedoes, and which he did, and I do believe I avoid them here. But the Lyon also was turning away, and therefore would not have been able to keep his guns on me when I was making that turn. But again, I need to be careful about how much side I'm showing. Got a Cleveland here that sets me on fire. The destroyer is visible. He really has to be the priority here to get him down, because when we do see him, we've got to get him out of the match. Shep is taken down by the Akatsuki, but his torpedoes find their mark and take out the Akatsuki. So now the destroyer's out of the way. There's no more destroyers, but we are now behind. Because our team in the southeast, or partly because our team in the southeast has continued to kind of spread out and try to push the cap, but it's being defended by a battleship, and they're getting whittled down. So we're now behind. Our positioning here relative to our opponents is not very good. Theirs isn't that great either, but I have now used my last heal. So this is all I have to work with at this point. And this Lyon and I are in a relatively long-range gun duel, which I'm not going to be very good at, thanks to German dispersion. He has more shells that he can pump out, although I just think I can probably put them out more quickly or more rapidly than he can. But this is this is my main adversary at this point. Get some more chip damage. I get one shell which shatters. At some point here later, I will switch to HE because the AP at this range just isn't doing the job for us. The Leander, thankfully, has come from our team. Thankfully, has come back. I had pinged earlier on the map. I really wanted the Jimijaz now to come back. He's quite healthy, if I remember correctly, and I needed his help to tank. And again, here I think I'm showing too much side. Jim is doing what he can to at least keep the cap under some control. I am out of range, the Cleveland, so I continue to fire on the Lyon. But nobody is targeting me now. Again, I'm just getting, well, I'm getting pens for some damage, but not much. So again, the Scharnhorst is not good for long-range gunnery. In fact, basically none of the German battleships are really designed for that. They're designed to be in close, brawling, let their secondaries do a lot of work. Obviously, the Scharnhorst, Tirpitz, and Jimijaz now have torpedoes that make them huge threats in close quarter situations. So, just trying to keep my distance to minimize the amount of damage I'm going to take. The Leander is taking a complete beating and now goes down. That leaves 4 ships against 5. We are still behind, but we almost have this Cleveland down. But even if we get the Cleveland down, we are still going to be behind because they were in our cap for a while and delayed us from being able to take cap points. And German dispersion strikes again. I completely missed the Cleveland. He's doing what he can to maneuver here. He knows I'm targeting him. I'm trying to keep my bow, or at least a strong angle, on the Lyon, and now the Koenig has come up to help him out. I get an over-penetration on the Cleveland. It's very frustrating here, but doing what we can to try to keep them from pushing in. I've got 2 targeting me. Right now I need to keep my bow on them as best I can. Finally finish off the Cleveland for the second kill, and now I think my priority again is the Lyon here, because he's a very strong player. Again, even though I'm well angled, with 16 shells being sent every probably 25 seconds or so, there's not much I can do. So the Lyon here is actually going to start sailing away. Jim's torps, again, some torps are notoriously slow, but he's able to get a spread onto the Koenig and take the Koenig out. So now we have regained the lead. The Lyon is starting to sail away so that he can minimize the chances that he's going to die. He's now lost all of his allies on this northern flank. But I have 2 people targeting me. One is the Lyon, and the other I'm not sure what it is. I think it may be the other Lyon at this point. And it's at this point that I switched to HE because my AP with the angle and the range and so on just isn't doing the trick. So try to get a fire going on him. I asked the shores to just back off, not go down. But in a moment here, the shores, which is on the, he's at Gulf 10, he just gets taken out by the other Lyon. And again, we're back in a deficit. And this Lyon is just trying to sail away at this point, and live, because he knows that if he goes down, they lose the lead again. He's got to do what he can, though. He's not going to be able to escape detection. He needs to do what he can to try to get me out. Another ship is targeting me, and I realize at this point it's actually the Fiji, which is in the south. And Jim, rightfully doesn't want to try to engage the Fiji. British cruisers are well known for being very effective. Not sure why I switched back to AP here. I think I finally finish off the Lyon. Kind of my adversary. I have to give it hats off to him. He played really well. Again, he got that huge hit on me earlier in the match. He played very well for his team. In fact, I think he ends up being top XP. Now this Fiji is quite healthy. I have no more heals. I'm working with about 5,000 health. Normally a Scharnhorst and a Fiji, there's little, as long as we have range, there's little that the Fiji can do. He's at risk, or would normally be at much more risk than I would be, but he's much healthier than I am. So I've got to keep my bow on him. I'm going to send some torps. I have no expectation that they actually are going to hit unless he just follows the same path, which I didn't expect that he would. But I can overmatch his bow. He has a 16 millimeter bow. Actually, it might be 13 millimeters. I think it's 16. But Scharnhorst AP can overmatch his bow, so I can still get pens on him. But the time is ticking down. I know he's sending torps. I'm going to try to fire here, but the time expires and we win the match. So very close match. Thanks to Jim and Schepker for their support. We all played a great game, and we all scored well in terms of XP earned. And again, hats off to the Lyon that was up by our cap. He was a very strong presence for his team and did a really good job. So I hope you enjoy this match. Thanks for watching. Happy sailing out there, and we'll see you out there.